Hello everyone, welcome back into another exciting video. So what the goal is on this one is we're going to upgrade our 2012 domain controller and we're going to try and move it up to 2019. There's a few different ways you can do this. For this lab, we're just doing a simple migration of the services, and we'll get into it a little more in detail. So let me give you a little overview of what we have going on. So I'll go ahead and click on my systems I have here. So we're currently on the domain controller, and we have DC02. This is going to be our new server, and we have a client 01, which will be our testing device that we can use to make sure that we're still able to do like GP updates and stuff like that. Make sure everything just is seamless, and then we'll kind of just get this ball rolling. So to get this thing started, what I've done already, like I said, is we have 3 different devices. I joined them all to the domain. The 2 other devices, these 2 are pointing as DNS to this DC01, which is my .11 IP address that I currently have. And so nothing, like I haven't added anything to the server yet. So let's just jump over there. And I will go over to my server, my new server. And let's go ahead and go up to Server Manager. So as you can see, I don't have any AD services or anything like that set up. So first thing we need to do is promote this one to a domain controller, because as of right now, it's just a server on the network. It's no different than any other device. So let's go ahead and give this one. I want this to be ready to take that configuration and roll with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and install Active Directory Domain Services. If you haven't done this already, it's pretty easy. Just come through, select your server. And what we're going to do is our Active Directory Domain Services. Click Next, Next, Next. And then it doesn't, you can have it reboot. It doesn't, if it needs it. This service doesn't require it until after you make your editor configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. All right, and while this is doing that, I'm going to click a pause and then we'll join right back in. Okay, so it looks like it's done now. So we'll just go ahead and close it. That took about 3 to 5 minutes. I don't really have too much resources set up for this server, so it takes longer when it doesn't have that. So come over here and click on your thing, and it's going to tell you, hey, you have this. Do you want to go ahead and start configuring your AD? Since it's already part of a domain, it's already seeing my lab for fun domain right here, and it's asking me, do I want to add it or do I want to do something different? I'm just going to add it to it. Oh yeah, and it requires credentials. So go ahead and click change. And then this is where you can have, if you have an administrator account or if you have special accounts that you want to use for doing different things. In this lab, I just have the standard administrator account that I'm going to use for this. With a very fun password. And so it has that. And now I can click next. Oops. Maybe I mistyped it. I'm good about mistyping. As anyone who knows me knows, or has watched my videos, I can mistype anything. There we go. Yeah, so my typing skills have been challenged. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and leave these the default. Yes, we want DNS replication. We want the catalog itself. And so this right here is like, so if once it becomes a domain account, it's not going to have a local account. So this is like a recovery password. So in the event you need to get back into this, that's where this password would come into play. I'm just going to set something kind of goofy. It's going to say, yep. And it's the same thing. And then if you have multiple domain controllers, you can say who you want to replicate from. I'm going to say just the one we have because it's kind of hard to replicate from somewhere we don't have. Click next, 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 next. And when this loads, you'll see a lot of these are just, hey, this is good. These are other recommendations, like if you have NIC teaming, especially for servers or production environments, you want to go through here, take a look at this, see if you can go ahead and do any of these to be a little more proactive, because it's building it out for a production environment. You want to try and have as much redundancy and safety as you can. We're not going to really worry about that, so I'm going to click next. And now this one's going to chug a lug for a while. It's going to take some time, and it's going to sign me out. And then once it comes back up, I'll go ahead and resume the video. But at that point, it will be a backup domain controller. And if you're not familiar with that settings, what that means is that it'll have a copy of everything, but I still need to make changes to the domain using my main domain controller. and this one's just going to have a copy of it. So if it ever goes down, hey, this one we can tell it, hey, you're now you're the one who's in charge. Essentially, that's what we're doing is we're going to copy everything over to it and let it see that it has access to everything that it needs, and then we will go ahead and change what is known as the roles and tell it, hey, instead of the 2012 one being in charge, you're going to be in charge now. And then we can shut off the old, the 2012 one, and this one would inherit all of that and already be able to be in place. And we'll jump into that here in a minute. All right, so we went ahead and just logged back in. One area for note that a lot of people forget is when you promote something to a domain controller, it deletes your local accounts, like I just mentioned, or your that account itself. So when I logged back in, my notes forum that I had on my desktop was not here. So if you have anything like that, you might want to back that up just in case, especially if you're known for saving stuff, like you're building out a config. Like for example, this is my notes for this project. I have it saved right here. So I'm going to copy this back over to this new to the new server. And so from here, I should be able to go into Active Directory users and groups, and I can see my domain environment now, and I can see stuff. But ultimately, I don't want to do it here until we promote this one as the domain master. So I come back over here to the actual server, and I can see, hey, my computer, I only have my client 01 computer now. He's a little lonely by himself. But if I come down here to my domain controllers, I see two of them. So if I create something like a DNS record or something like that, it will show up over on the other one. A prime example would be, let's go ahead and do that as an example. So we'll just go into our DNS. And so this is the DNS records for my domain. We will do a forward lookup zone, and we'll just go ahead and create something fun. Maybe I'm going to install a web server, www, and we'll go 192.168.1.100. Okay, so that's my domain server. Okay, cool. So if I go back over to my new domain controller over here, and I do the same thing, DNS, come over and look, and then forward lookup zones, and then mine, I see my www. My apologies for coughing on the mic. So I see that it's going to take a little bit of time for this to replicate, but when I click refresh, hopefully it shows up. But I can see that this is my domain environment. It's pretty solid. Ultimately, once you have it connected, you should probably let it set for a minute and just let it gather all of its information. It should be sharing the information to this one. But one of the fun things that a lot of people forget is if I come over here and go, you know what, maybe I want to add, let's just do something fun, test me. And we'll give it the IP address 192.168.55.5. And then I click OK. And I close this. See how test me is right here? Let's jump back over onto the old one. I close that. I could refresh, or I could just come back. Notice on how test me is not here. Maybe I've refreshed this and I should be able to get to it. Refresh. Notice on how we don't have it. That's because when you have a backup domain controller, it is just that, it is a backup. What changes you make to it won't write to the main one until it's the main one. So let's jump back over to that one. And we refresh. Are we going to see anything different? No. Okay, so I went ahead and refreshed it again. There we go. I got the www. So giving it some time, it's going to take time to synchronize. What I would recommend is, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. Go grab a cup of coffee, as Network Chuck likes to say. So if I come back over here, though, and it's been a few minutes, let me forward lookup zones, live for fun. But I could refresh this until the cows come home, as some people like to say. I'm not seeing it. So ultimately, let it have some time to refresh and propagate that information between each other. And then we can come in here and go, okay, well, this one's fine as the domain controller, but maybe I want to make this one the backup now. So in the notes I have on here, it basically will walk you through that. These are the AD commands to do it. I named them just so that way I don't have to come in here and you guys have to watch my terrible typing. Basically, what these will do is change the roles right here. We won't run this on our domain controller currently. We will run this on the backup. So we're going to come over here, and as you seen just a little bit ago, I copied it over here, and then we'll make this zoom in a little bit for those of us that have some vision issues, and we'll do the same thing. But make sure right here where it says the name, this is the actual name of your computer. Like this is this server itself. This is what I want it to be. So I'm going to open this up full screen, and then we'll open up a PowerShell with admin prompt permissions, because you have to be an administrator in order to do this. And then we will go ahead and start moving some. So let's just pick on the first one. Go ahead and Control-C it. Paste. And it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to do this? Yes. And you can come through here individually. Maybe you want to delve in a little bit more on your design. This is one way of doing it. I did not copy. Control-C. Thank you. That one, yes. My apologies on the font on the PowerShell. I didn't think that one through ahead of time to make it a little more friendly for the video. But if you need to, feel free to pause and take a look if you need it. All right. And if you want to do it the old school way, hey, that works too. Do I want to copy this? Yes. Yes. And that was me. That was the delay. My apologies on that. So if you're interested in what these roles do a little bit more, you can look into them. So say you want to have a domain controller that's responsible for part of this. You can technically do that. And I probably should have gave this a little more resource because it's glitching a little bit. Copy. Y. And so now I want to make, who's the infrastructure master? I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. Make sure you copy it all, because if not, it's like any other syntax in the PowerShell command line. If you don't have the right syntax, it simply won't do anything. Yes. All right. So after running those, we can run these commands right here that will test and see if who it actually is. Or if you don't know ahead of time, hey, maybe I inherited this domain environment. I don't know what's doing what. We can do this, and I will go ahead and paste this in up here. And I'll do this a second command, and I'll zoom in here in a sec so you guys can kind of see a little more on that. Okay, so let me see if I can get this zoom thing to work for me. All right, there we go. So essentially, what this is saying is check this infrastructure. I want to see who my infrastructure is, my RIDMaster, my ecom. And so each one of these is check and see. So who is my SchemaMaster now? DevDCO2 is. DevDCO2 is. So if I might have messed up anywhere on any of these commands up here, then it would have told me simply down here that, hey, DCO1's still in charge of that different area. So, for example, if I would have messed up on the RID, if it would have said DC01, then I would have known that, okay, hey, that command didn't take. As of right now, looking at this, I can tell that I am now officially on the new domain controller. That being said, if you're going to do this with like a separate account, like I said, I did this with the administrator account. Let me zoom out. I did this with the administrator account, so you can do it with that. Or if you're going to create a separate account, you can do that as well. And just make sure you have enterprise admin access and you set your account up as as a as a schema administrator, so that way you can make those changes. So if we come back over here to our client, is our client Anywiser? Let me just run a PowerShell command, gp update / force. Let me make sure I spell it right. And I still managed to misspell it when trying to do that. Okay, so right now it's reaching out, trying to synchronize its information with the domain controllers. So with our current one still being up, right, it's not that big of a deal. It succeeded just fine. Essentially what we did is we migrated the roles over. So the current one for our DCO1 now, so if I come back over here, this one right here, DCO1, is now my backup. So if I went to create something here, it may not go as planned versus if I try and put it over on DCO2. So like if I put something on DCO2 now, it will work just fine. But maybe I want to decommission this. I want the server to be gone because, hey, it's fine for right now. This will be a good test environment. Hey, you migrated this. Let's leave this up and running. And if we run into something, or maybe I wanted this to get stepped down as my backup controller, for example, would be another common use for this. But let's say I want to shut this machine down. Well, can I do that? So now that it is the backup controller, can I come up here and shut it? Let's go ahead and shut it off. Shut down. Yes, that sounds good. Yes. Now on my host machine, since I have my DNS set statically, I will need to change the IP to the one it's pointing to the new domain controller. So if I come over here, and you might already have this up in like another way, but right now I have it just pointing to that one host. So I want it to go ahead and point to 12 because that's what the new one's going to be. If I close that. Can I run the same command and have it still update? Might take it a second. Okay, yeah, it just took it a little second longer because after that change, let me zoom in so you guys can see that. So yeah, my computer policy updated and everything updated. It just took it a second longer because when you change it, it's trying to reach out and it already thinks it knows where it is, but because it more than likely it caches it somewhere. So at that point, I am reaching out to the new domain server. Now, what I want to do is I'll walk you guys through the process of decommissioning that old server. Right now, I just have it shut off, so maybe that's what I want to do. I want to shut it off, make sure everything's still stable. If I need to, I can always turn it back on and move the roles back over. But maybe we give that about a week to make, or a few times. It depends on your environment, what works best for you. Leave it leave it around just in case you need it. But let's go ahead and take a quick break, and I will go ahead and get that server fired back up, and we will go ahead and start the process of decommissioning it. All right, so let's go ahead and log back into this box. Okay, so as of right now, it's acting as a backup domain controller, which is fine. Like I said, if you wanted it that way, that's perfectly dandy. Maybe you want to keep it for so you can just have that for additional use. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and decommission this one because I don't want this one to be on my network anymore. Because I want to eventually move my my new domain controller. I want to move it over to maybe this .11 IP. Maybe this is the one that everything's pointing to already statically, and I don't want to fight with it. We can do that. We could have done that. We can do that right now if we wanted to. I'm personally going to wait to the end. This would be a time that if you wanted to point the new domain, you would just change this IP and then change your other one over to your .11 or whatever yours currently is. But we'll go ahead and start the decommissioning process of this. So as of right now, this one is still a domain member. It's still a domain controller. What I want to do is I want to remove this from a domain controller. So if I come over here and click remove roles and services, next, next, and I click on this, remove. Okay, so yeah, I hit the wrong button. So I tried skipping it. I want to actually uncheck this box. And you might get an error. Let's see what this is. Okay. Well, we'll say next. Zoom in so we can see what this says. Validation results. Active Directory domain controller needs to be demoted before. Okay, so because this is how a lot of people would assume that we would go ahead and go about doing this, is we would try to do that and just remove it. But first, you can't just remove yourself. You have to go into the Active Directory Manager and then demote yourself. So, tools. Okay, sorry about that. I was double checking, making sure that I did it right. Okay, so we want to go ahead and remove it, as we have to demote ourselves because we can't be in charge and say that we're not going to be part of the environment anymore. So we was in the right spot. So one of the most common things is you see an error and it's easy to freak out and go, okay, well, let me not do it. So we come over here to click on this to remove it, remove, and see how it freaks out and tells us. But right here's a nice little link that, hey, we want to remove ourselves as a domain controller. And then it's going to ask us, okay, do we want to do some, let me zoom in on here and make it a little easier on you. So force removal of this domain controller, or do we just want to simply do it? Honestly, like I've done it without a force and it worked just fine. But let's try, because if you force it, use this item as the last domain controller you must perform. So we're not going to worry about forcing it. We'll just click next. We're going to be nice to it. The domain controller currently holds the following roles. Proceed with removal, because the other domain controller should hold those roles. And then what do I want my new administrator password to be? Because this is, remember, it's going to create a new account because it'll create a local account, and I'm going to set it to something. This would be what you go to log in and with it after you demote it. So like this will just be the regular administrator account. And it's warning you, hey, you realize you're getting ready to do this. Yes, demote. Let me try and get the zoom to pop off there. All right, I'm going to pause this for a second while this is doing this. All right, as we can see, you're about to be signed out because we'll need to log in with the new, we'll need to log in with that administrator password we just set here. Because essentially what we're doing is we're telling this one, hey, you're no longer going to be part of that environment. If we come over to our new domain server, let's close this. We'll close that. And I'll put that in, those links in the show notes to make it easier for you. Let's do, users and groups. Let's see, domain controllers, DCO2 now, but DCO1 is still part of our environment here, so we can still log in with it using our administrator credential, but like for the local admin itself. So let's go ahead and remove this from this. MST. And we will do .11, which is its current IP address. And we can still log in because it is still a domain member. Technically, it is still a domain member. So it is the same as any other server now. Basically, we just took away its permissions, saying it's in charge. And then removing this is similar to removing another device. Like anytime you remove like a workstation, it's very similar as far as disconnecting it. Uninstalling uninstalled the administrative roles, so I don't really want to bore you with the steps of removing a device from the Active Directory because most of us have already done that. Essentially, it's the same way. You go back in and you remove it, you unjoin it from the domain. It's go under system, and then you can simply do that and turn it back into a work group. But the administrator password is to what you set it to previously. The only difference is what I would like to do is show one other area that will be different. Come back over here to our new domain controller. If we come under sites and services, if you're a smaller environment, you're typically not in this section that often, but if you come under here and then your default servers, it will still be listed here. It doesn't delete it automatically. So from here, it's no longer a valid server on there. Yes, I know. Goodbye. So with that being done, uninstalling unjoining it from the domain is simple. Let me go ahead and pause this because I'm going to shut off that server again because I want to use that IP address for this server because this is my going to be my new replacement server. So if we come over here on the host, we could still do the GP update just fine. But like I said, I want to shut off that other server and I want to move it to this .11 IP address because that was just a temporary IP address I used to set it up. So as of right now, my domain environment is exactly on how I want it. Uninstall it, remove the computer, simple. So let me pause that, shut off that other virtual machine, and we'll set this host IP address the same. We'll be right back. Okay, so let me go ahead and do a little bit of a plot twist on this. So just in case someone doesn't know how to do it on like a server side, we're back into the .11 IP address here. We would uninstall that server role. So like right now, it's just acting as a basic server. But since we're going to be decommissioning this box, we're going to come up here to System and see on how it says it's still part of the domain right here. We come over here, change, and there's my domain. Let's set it back to a work grouping. Okay, are you sure you'll be removing it from the domain? And then it's going to require permission to remove it. Okay, and close. We'll restart later because I'm actually going to shut this one off because I don't really care about this box anymore. So we'll come up here and click power. But remember this .11 IP address we're on right now, I want to use that as my current one. So we'll go ahead and click shutdown. Shutdown. And so we're back over here on our new domain controller. That one should be shutting down. So if I ping it, ping in .4.7.11. This is the IP address I want for my domain controller. Oops. So I can see it shut off now because it's not pinging. And .12 is currently where we're at, and 13 as our test client. So what I want to do is I want to come in here and change this. But if you go to ever change your IP address on a domain controller, and say you're just on autopilot thinking it's the same as any other device, come in here. Sorry, you can't do it. That's slightly frustrating. And I have it in the notes here. Let me scroll in all the way down here at the bottom. And then I copy this from somewhere else because it does work. Now I need to remember what the command was. There it is. This is the command that you'll need to type. So if you want to use the Windows key and R, or you can right click and click run, whichever way strikes your fancy to get there. Note you will need to be an administrator, which hopefully you are if you're doing all this. So properties, and mine's on .12. I want to make this .11. Notice on how it's trying to reach out to there. So if I knew I had another domain controller that I want to be a backup IP address, that's fine. I'm not going to really worry about that at the moment. But it's ultimately it's talking to itself. That's where the delay was coming in at. So if I want to, I can say, you know what, go ahead and talk to yourself. Both ways. That's fine. Close. And now I'm going to lose my RDP session to this server because I was connected on this .12 IP address. So if I close that, and we will RDP to .11 now. Go ahead and connect. I'm back in here on my .11 IP address where I was pinging 12 earlier. Should fail. Yep. Host is unreasonable or unreachable, whichever you want to call it. I've heard both. And then .11. Yep, I'm pinging. Now, the most important thing is, can my clients still connect? So, yes, I did all this migration, but can I connect using my client doing a GP update or a new user? So let's just test this out. We'll go ahead and do users and groups. I'm just going to create a basic user just for the funsies. Or whatever we want to do. Let's do that. Yeah. Let's do a new user just for fun. And we're going to call it test user. Call him Bob. See if I can work this magic of typing again. And I'm not going to require me to change my password because it's me. And then I'm also going to make myself an administrator because I don't want to try and have to go through for the remote access. So typically you wouldn't make yourself an administrator, but just for fun. Since this is a lab environment, obviously you would want to create a more secure approach to that. If I come back over to here, I'm logged in as an administrator anyway on this computer. But remember, I changed that IP address, and this is hard set. So let me just change this back. Because this is pointing to the .12. We want it back to the .11 because I changed that domain controller to a .11. Oop, no, I just started to mess up. That would have been fun. .13 is my IP address, and I want my DNS to be .11. I'll click OK, OK. And now I should be able to do my GP update as an administrator. Reach out and be happy. Okay, so I figured out what was going on and why I was being a pain in the hot dog. So one area that I forgot to mention that is definitely a good time to do it is when you do this, you're going to have to more than likely reboot a bunch of machines because it's trying to connect into the old domain controller using its information, especially when it's looking for like SIDs and stuff. So if you reboot it, when I rebooted this host, it works just fine now. The only thing is, so let me minimize this host. So over here on the DC, it's acting just fine. I did change this. I don't know if it actually will make that big of a difference, but I personally prefer them to stay organized anyway. So I'm telling it, just loop back to yourself. You're your own DNS server anyway. So talk to yourself about it. This was down here at the bottom, and then I was using its public or its host IP in order for it to talk to it. Honestly, I removed that and put this in here. And that's what I did. I rebooted the host device, and it seemed to work just fine. I hope this has been informative for you guys. I appreciate the struggles because I wanted to leave the struggles in. A lot of people like to edit stuff out of their videos. Most of mine I like to leave in because it's real world. How else are you going to learn how to do something if you don't struggle through it? Um, and it reminds everybody, hey, look, we all struggle with it. For me, this was just a simple lab environment, but maybe you need to do this in a production environment, and you wanted to see what it's like. So hopefully this was informative and you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and hope to see you again. And as always, like they say, be sure to like and subscribe.